Welcome to the Monday Reckoning, episode one of the Monday Reckoning. What is the Monday Reckoning about? Well, the Monday Reckoning is really about my reflections and insights into what has happened in the week before and what's coming up in the week ahead. And this is done from the perspective of the overwhelmed firm owner, the accountant, the bookkeeper, the tax advisor who are stuck on the tools, drowning in the week, and ending up working in their practice instead of on it. And let's be honest, that's a fairly common type of an encounter that I have, and where people are struggling. And so what I'm trying to do is just take the key points and based on my experience and interactions, short segments, 5, 6, 7 minutes, and that we come on here live every Monday. In time, you will be able to ask me questions, you'll be able to interact with me, and we'll be on multiple channels, multiple platforms. And for today, we're just getting started. And actually, probably that's a good thing to talk about on the reckoning, because a lot of people get stuck, and they get stuck when things aren't exactly as they want them to be, and they get stuck when they can't get to the point of perfection. Whereas this is really what we're looking for, and we are looking for progress, not perfection. So today, I could have said, let's not start the Monday Reckoning. We don't have the LinkedIn restream. We had some technical problems. We don't have this streaming to Circle. But no, it's better to start. It's always better to take the first step. It may not be perfect. It may not be ideal, but moving forward. And I have an interesting little sticker down here on my computer. Let's look at that. And this sticker comes from, who is it? I'm not even sure who it is, but it gives us the option: do nothing, do everything, do something. And sometimes the very act of trying to do everything prohibits us. And that's really a consideration as an overwhelmed firm owner or an overwhelmed business owner. Now, I'm sure the team will be very unhappy with the logistics of that camera movement there, but we'll get that fixed afterwards. And the first thing I want to talk about this week is I want to talk about hard work. And I want to talk about why hard work still wins and how I practically interacted with that this week. Firms aren't struggling because of the market. They're not struggling because of AI. They're not struggling because of the talent shortage. Now, maybe you won't like me saying that, but the fundamental issue is some firms are not struggling with those things. Some firms are having much more success than others. And why is that happening? Why that's happening is it's about fundamentals and work rate. The teams that master the basics and outwork everyone dominate the field. We live in a society where we are surrounded by sport, and sport plays such a huge part. But just listen to that again. The teams that master the basics and outwork everyone dominate the field. So I spent part of last weekend on a training camp with a county under 14 squad. We're talking about 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds. And we brought them away, and we spent a day. We did some gym and a strength session. There was obviously age appropriate. There was a bit of team building and bonding in there. Then we brought them out to a field and we ran some drills and games and skills that we were working on. Then we brought them into a room and we had an analyst look at some of their past games and training and highlight strengths and weaknesses. And then we brought them back onto the field. Then we brought them to this like campsite. It was like we had dorms, and we had some fun activities. We had something to eat. And then obviously kids at that age, it was hard to get them to go sleep. We got up the following day. We had a team meeting. We went back to the field. We came back with a team building exercise. We had our lunch and we went home. So this is about creating high performance. What did I actually see at the camp? Well, what I actually saw at the camp was the different approaches. And one of the analysts really summed it up for me. And they asked the question, are you training to participate? Are you training to compete? Are you training to win? Or are you training to dominate? And the message that we gave them was, well, first of all, you need to have the fundamental skills. You need to have the fundamental skills in place to play the game. And you need to work on those fundamental skills. But then we went on to talk about the other fundamentals such as mindset, the fundamentals of nutrition, the fundamentals of strength and conditioning, the fundamentals of flexibility, mobility. But and this was a county setup. This was a high performance team, and really, what the analyst came back to was hard work trumps everything. And we analysed games that these guys had played. We analysed games at a national level, and we identified where hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. So just listen to that again. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And it really triggered something for me, because it triggered for me when I have seen less talented firms beat more qualified ones by working purely on work rate and the basic fundamentals of running a business. So think about that. And like, you know, kids improve because they do the basics repeatedly at intensity. But often I find that adults chase hacks and skip the fundamentals. And the hardest working team wins on the field of play. And effort is a skill and a choice, both in sport and in practice ownership. So, you know, talent turns up on the team sheet, whereas work rate turns up on the scoreboard. Maybe you don't need a new strategy. Maybe you just need to do the basics at a higher intensity. And here's the thing, the hardest work you're avoiding isn't in your inbox, it's actually in your head. It's hard work doesn't cause stress. It's not doing what we know we should is the single biggest causer of stress. And the biggest challenge we have is overcoming our mindset and shifting our mindset and our thinking. So that's my first reckoning. And the second reckoning actually stems out of that. And it came from, I'm part of Strategic Coach. So obviously I run Profit Pro and we have masterminds, and I believe in masterminds and I believe in accountability. It's not do as I say, don't do as I do. So I spend time going to masterminds. And on Tuesday, and I was struggling. I really, it would have been just so much easier to cancel the mastermind, not go and just catch up on work on Tuesday. But no, I drove my car, I got to the airport, I caught the plane, went to London Monday night. Tuesday then I was at my mastermind. And one of the big issues that kept coming up in the mastermind was business owners. Okay, there's little or no accountants in this mastermind. So they were business owners, a little bit different to you, but common issue. And they were getting really frustrated with AI. And there was 40 people in the room, and some of the people were getting so frustrated. I could hear it in their voice. I could hear the challenge. I could really, like, you know, these people were frustrated. And they were frustrated with AI, and they were going, all the hype, everything about AI. How do I get it to work for me? How do I get it to work for me? How do I get a result with AI? Now, this was a room of people who are entrepreneurs, highly successful entrepreneurs. It was Dan Sullivan's 10X program. So these people pay a lot of money to be in the room. They're all successful business owners. But this message of frustration was throughout the room. And this is a message of frustration that I've heard in the accounting profession too. Um, and the first thing that struck me was people were going, well, I'm not getting enough out of AI. I need to get more out of AI. I needed to save me time. I needed to do things for me. And it was really interesting. These people are sort of in an environment of thinking and an environment of thinking time and an environment of, well, you think at a different level and then your business follows. But I was talking to people and they clearly weren't spending the time thinking. They had got sucked into the emotion, the frustration, the anger of, well, AI is not working for me the way I wanted to do. But yet they were missing the fundamental lesson. We have to think first. Like everything that exists in the world that has been created by mankind has been created twice. It was first created in the mind, and having first of all been created in the mind, then it was created into reality. So we need to elevate our thinking in relation to AI. Now, if you've heard me talk about AI, you'll probably have heard me talk about this book before. And it's a book called The AI Driven Leader by a guy called Jeff Woods. And my recommendation to these 40 odd people in that mastermind last week, when the conversation went universal, was, well, you've got to create thinking time. Like, for example, for my Profit Pro Inner Circle Mastermind members, we have a golden hour thinking time once a week. We come together on a Zoom call. I don't educate, I don't do anything. I introduce everybody. Maybe I'll share a thought of the day or thought of the week. And we go off and we spend time thinking. And we have a structured process. Some people write, some people type, some people will work with AI. But we have a structured process for thinking. And after 56, 57 minutes, I'll come back on the call, I'll thank everybody, and we'll go about our way. But this concept of getting out of the day-to-day to think. If we want to create a better business, if we want to create better circumstances, the two stages of creation that mankind has gone through for centuries, millennia, is we think it first, then we create it. But the second thing is, in this AI-driven world, I have another post-it note. It comes to think, a lot of post-it notes. I asked the question, sorry, my writing is terrible, but that post-it note actually says is, how can AI help me with this? How can AI help me with this? Well, if we have an AI implementation problem, ask AI, how can it help me? How can you help me here? How can you help me in my thinking to get a better result and a better solution? And the second post-it note that I have on my desk is CRIT, context, role, interview, task. Ask AI, well, like, if I want to get more out of AI, how can I get more out of AI? Now, for our Profit Pro members, for our mastermind members, for people who do the AI and automation masterclass with us, we've created prompts and tools that can help with this. But the basic concept is, you ask your generative AI, you give them the context, so CRIT, the context of what problem you're trying to solve. You assign them a role. Well, maybe they're an AI thinking partner, an AI thinking genius. They interview you to get your insights, and then they go away and execute the task. Now, look, I type at, like, I don't know, 40, 50 words a minute. I speak at about 150 words a minute. So I talk to my AI. I use Whisperflow as a tool, or I talk directly to the AI and I brainstorm with it. So if you're frustrated with AI, if you want to get a better result, two things I would suggest is that you get the book by Jeff Woods, The AI Driven Firm. And the essence of the message of that book is, AI is a thought partner, you are the thought leader. If you take that approach with AI and you ask the right questions, that will elevate your AI usage. But the second big thing is if you're frustrated, if you're on the treadmill and feel like you can't get off the treadmill, you've got to get off the treadmill. And how you get off the treadmill is by creating some clarity with thinking time. Uh, Another conversation I've had with a couple of people over the last few years is, um, uh, the naysayers around AI. And this is accelerating now. And over the last couple of weeks, I've had a number of conversations with people who are either AI zealots who believe in AI or they're anti-AI, some people in the middle. And it's really interesting that when I talk to people, like that AI didn't just start in 2022. AI is a continuum that's been running for over 60 years. Generative AI is just the current phase. We had our AI audience with the experts masterclass, and we'd on people like Randy Johnston from the US, who's a veteran, 60-year veteran of providing technology solutions to the accounting profession. And Randy talks about how AI has been around for years. So right now we're in the generative AI, which is the current phase, but there's much more to come. And you see, I don't think you need to be a techie, but if you don't understand the arc of AI and where this is going, you can miss out. I started reading this book. Actually, I forgot the title of it now. The disadvantage of doing live um, transitions or live broadcasts. But the book is How to Think About AI by a guy called Richard Susskind. And basically what he does is he brings you through the evolution of AI over the last 60 years. And he talks a little bit about where it's going and where it's come from. Now, this guy comes from a deep, deep background in law, but he's been a student of AI, almost turning it into a family business. Um, in terms of his kids have followed in his footsteps, in terms of training and demystifying AI. He talks about rules-based systems, machine learning, deep learning, generative AI, and what's coming next in terms of agents and reasoning. It's I haven't read the full book yet. So I haven't read the full book. The book is called How to Think About AI by Richard Susskind, but I haven't read it yet. But what I have read of it, it's really interesting and it's shifted my thinking around AI. Now, I'm not saying I'm an AI, anything, but I am interested in AI. I've been on the AI journey since ChatGPT landed in 2022. And I learn it and I teach it. But this book totally changed my thinking about the history of AI, what it means right here, right now, today. Like this is the phase we're in at the moment. It it's not just a moment. This is something that has been compounding for 6 decades. Generative AI, as we know it, is just a phase. It's not the finish line. And the point for non-techies is you no longer need to understand code. You need to understand the direction of travel. Like one of the concepts that I really liked in Richard's book was he talked about how Gutenberg and the printing press shifted the evolution of society and mankind, the democratization of knowledge, and that AI is the next direction of travel on that journey. And here's the most important thing that I took out of it is you don't build your firm around this year's tools. You build it around the trajectory. You build it around the documented processes, the clean data with the human judgment on top. Anybody who's on my AI and automation masterclass is probably sick of me saying this. You cannot automate a mess. the firms that are going to win the next phase of the evolution of our profession, the evolution of business and entrepreneurship, are the ones that are doing the boring foundational work now. And that's something I talked about earlier in this session when I talked about fundamentals and hard work outperforming. Okay, so the other thing that I'm working on this week, and I want to share this with you, is I'm working on our annual Profit Pro retreat. So for our boardroom and our inner circle mastermind members, we hold this annual retreat. And it's a 2-day thinking, but it's not a 2-day conference. Okay. It is a retreat. It's about coming out of what we do on a day-to-day basis. It's about getting some perspective, and it is about creating space to reflect on what's truly important in our business. And at this year's retreat, we have a 3-time world champion joining us. And obviously, I've created and curated this event over 6 months, but I'm getting him in to talk about high performance in sport and how he has become best in the world. Now, I have another guy coming in, and he's a psychologist, and he's worked with my Profit Pro Mastermind before, and he knows most of our members. So he's taking the high performance from a sporting perspective, and he's transferring that into a personal psychology approach. Now, I'm giving some keynotes, but the whole theme of the 2 days is about high performance. And I've done a lot of work on this in my own business, right? So I'm growing a business just like you. I'm learning, applying, using what I learn in theory land, applying it in my business. And then I'm teaching accountants, bookkeepers, tax advisors, entrepreneurs how to implement this. So one of the big things that I've learned this year is the impact of values. And some people are kind of like, oh, values, yeah, whatever, airy-fairy. But you see, values set the outline for culture, and the culture within your organization is really built by the standards that we set and hold ourselves accountable to. And high performance comes from those standards. So values, mission, that stuff is up here. Culture is the space that we hold that our business operates in. But we got to translate our values and our culture into standards, and the standards that we hold ourselves to, the accountability we hold ourselves to, and the result then is performance. So you can't have a high-performing team until you become a high-performing leader. And when you get it right, your team stop being passengers and become multipliers. So that's kind of the theme for the retreat. So there's a personal journey in there, and then there is a business journey and a team journey. But, some firms have this as a poster on the wall, but do we actually have this on the floor? Do we have it on the floor in your office, in your desk, in your seat? Because we have to start with ourselves first. And once we've started and worked on ourselves as leaders, well, then can we and have we translated it to the team? Values define the culture. Culture sets the standards. Standard drive the performance. If you skip the link, you get slogans without results. And you have to be the high-performing leader first. Your team will never consistently outperform the standard that you model. So it does place a burden and a responsibility. And it ties into my work with teams in sport. When I talk to them and I look in the mirror and say, well, am I holding myself to a standard? Am I congruent in their eyes? Um, People will pick up on it very quickly if there's an incongruence between what is being presented versus what is the reality behind the scenes. So you need to become a high performance leader first, and then the multipliers come from your team. It's amplification. It's about having people who will raise the standard when you're not in your room. And here's a couple of things, like you get what you tolerate. But another variation of that phrase that has come to me in the last couple of weeks is what you tolerate is what you train. And your team is never going to outperform the standard that you model. And culture is not the poster that's on the wall. It's what happens on the floor when you're not there. So some fundamentals, some thinking, the AI arc, the standards, and that's four truths for this, our first Monday reckoning. So right now we're going to run the Monday reckoning every Monday at 1300 BST, IST, so 1 o'clock lunchtime in British summertime. And we're going to see where it goes from there. We're going to run it for 30 minutes. Next week, the team will have the ability for you to ask questions and interact with me. I come up with my ideas. And this is really just a little bit of Monday motivation and a little bit of Monday reflection and thinking. So wherever you're watching this, and whether you're watching the full Monday reckoning or whether you're watching the smaller pieces, get onto theprofitpro.com and find the link to join our next Monday reckoning this time next week, 1300, here on whatever channel you're on today. See you soon, folks.